Austin, we may be live before you see it. So I think let's assume we are live right
now.
We could, but it would be wrong.
It would be wrong to assume we're live. Coming to you dead now from Sonoma, California, Chicago, Illinois, and some point west of London. London's
a village in Hampshire, yeah.
A village in Hampshire.
Mine's not as glamorous. You have really exciting addresses. I'm just like little tiny village in England. It's not really very metropolis.
For us, a village in England sounds fabulous.
Does it really?
Yeah.
I don't think my teenage daughters would agree.
Anybody who follows you on
social media, on the Instagram or the Twitter, knows that you have the most fabulous new home. That is, so say what you like about a village in Hampshire. That home is its own village in Hampshire. It's beautiful. Oh my gosh.
You're so kind. Oh well, it hasn't been too bad being in lockdown in this house, but we've loved it. But it is quite remote, and as I keep saying, I don't think it's really been fun for my teenagers living up a track in the countryside, stuck in with their like really uncool parents. But we've really enjoyed living in the house because we only moved in under a year ago, so it's still a novelty.
Oh my gosh. Are we on the YouTube? Because I'm not seeing our faces on the YouTube. I'm not seeing our faces on the Facebook either, but I don't know how Facebook
I'm on the main page of YouTube. There is a thing that says we're live, but it doesn't have it on the link, but YouTube is showing that we are live.
But it's just it's showing just the picture, not our faces, not our screen. Can they hear us but not see us? Let's see, live chat. Let's go over the live chat.
Says live in a few minutes. Don't know if you can hear us. Somebody say so. on some platform.
So Austin, I'm going to share this real fast. So this is going to be forgot. So there's Facebook. We are live.
There we are.
But I don't know if it's that same link, which would be very frustrating because I thought it was so. But we are streaming.
Okay.
I'm not hearing Austin.
No, is he talking? I thought he was having just a little think.
I don't hear him. I see his lips moving, but I do not hear him.
Maybe he's just having a little game and doing some improv without any voice.
There you go.
He had to restart his computer before.
Yeah, that's your job. That's your job. I can't clown. I can't. Actually, maybe I can. I can do that.
There you go. You got it.
That's it.
Got it. Now we hear you.
I can hear you now. We can hear you.
Sounds like
you're tapping your knee and he's running.
First syllable.
So well.
Restart.
The whole situation stinks. All right.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we'll assume we're live, even though I can't see anything on anything. But yeah. So on my YouTube thingy, which is live, it says it will begin in a few moments. So maybe we have begun and maybe we haven't. But if we have, it would be good if somebody could just say we can see you or not, I think. But I don't know.
Besides you and me to each other.
Yeah,
in case we have started, this is what we're talking about today. Pop-up Shakespeare. Jennie Maizels, Pop-up Shakespeare, with help from Reed Martin and Austin Tichenor of the Reduced Shakespeare Company.
When you say help, you mean completely wrote it and supplied all the content?
Well, who came to who?
It's your book, and I just did the pictures. So I really.
But it was your idea.
Give you credit. Well, you know what they say. An idea is 1%, and then it's 99% perspiration, isn't it? So really, it's your book. But yeah, it was. I did have the idea, and knew instantly that I had to ask you to write it, because I'm not a scholar and I don't know much about Shakespeare. And actually, part of the whole thought process was, oh, I wish I'd had this book as a child, actually, because I wish I had the depth of knowledge that I would want my own children to have. I hold my hands up and say I am not a Shakespeare specialist at all, and that's why I needed you.
And we know just enough to be dangerous. What year you approached Austin? Was it on Twitter or Facebook?
It was on Twitter.
What year that was?
Was that? That's a really good question. I think it was maybe around 2016. Would you say? Maybe late 2015, 16. And I was driving along and I was thinking, because I'm always thinking about the next project and the next book, I thought, I want to follow up from Pop-Up London with something theatrical, something maybe late 2015, 16. And I was driving along and I was thinking, because I'm always thinking about the next project. I can hear
now
you now.
I'm hearing Jenny and Jenny.
London. That's me. I told you, I can do the clowning and the double voice thing. It's just
there we go.
That was me. My bad.
Sorry. So you were driving around. You'd done Pop-Up London, and you.
I had finished Pop-Up London. I thought it needs to be something theatrical, and sometimes ideas just sort of come all at once and really, really quickly. And so I literally just thought it needs to be the complete works of Shakespeare, and then another crashing thought, and it needs to be written by the Reduced. I mean, that's just it. That has to be it. And I knew about the Reduced Shakespeare Company because when this is 1996, and it was my husband and it was our first date. So in 96, I told you I was 110. So we went to see the Reduced in London, and I was just, it had a real effect on me, actually. It was just the pace and the cleverness and the way that it worked on so many levels, and it was just the most extraordinary thing I'd ever seen. It was so clever, and I laughed, like just properly laughed. And so I was just really excited to get in touch with, slightly kind of starstruck. Like, would they just ignore my tweet from a nobody? So I think I tweeted the Reduced Shakespeare Company and said, introduce myself, and then I think I said, I've got an idea, and I put a kind of caveat that I said, I'm not a weirdo, I promise. And it's been a bit of a joke between us because it's all slightly debatable, but just to kind of introduce myself. And then because of the time difference, in the time that it took for you guys to respond to me, I had already written my pitch because I was so excited about the idea. And so I think that you maybe did think I was a weirdo because I just kind of shot off this response. And I think you thought I'd written it with the speed of light. And within like a matter of a day, we were Skyping and chatting about it. I think, is that right, Austin? It was very quick, wasn't it?
It was very quick because I got this tweet out of the blue from you and said, you said, I promise I'm not a weirdo, which I thought was a very promising start. I think more cover letters need to lead with that. But I was going, wow, Jennie Maizels, that sounds really familiar. And Google Jennie Maizels. I went, oh my God, I have one of her books. I've got this book. We bought this book, the Wonderful World book. We had the amazing pop-up geography book. We had much of your oeuvre, if I may say that, already in our house, which is why. And so immediately I went, yes, I want to work with this person, obviously. And Reed said, oh, no, that's a terrible idea. She sounds like a weirdo.
She's a weirdo. Don't touch her. Yeah, no, don't go near her. She's a mad person.
But it was a long time ago. Maybe I did. Weirdo in the very best possible sense. What I remember is Austin and Jenny had some back and forths. And then we were writing Long Lost. We were at your house, Austin. And we had, I think this is pre-Zoom. I think we had maybe a Skype. I
think it was comedy. We were writing comedy.
Okay.
That's when you came to Chicago. Yes, you're right. So it was 2014, 2015.
Oh, I got it way wrong. I said sort of late 2015, 16. Okay, sorry. Yeah, that makes more sense. God, that was ages ago.
I didn't have this. I wasn't gray-haired then.
I got rid of mine.
But I want to talk. While I was rebooting, I heard you say something that was key for me too. You wanted the thing that you didn't have when you were a kid.
Yeah, it's really
And
true.
it was the same thing for me, and probably Reed too. It was
Mm.
what would be if I'd seen other pop-up books, and I had other children's books about Greek mythology and about the Bible and about all these other things that I sort of treasured, but nothing about Shakespeare. And so it just seemed like such a wonderful opportunity.
And I think also kids are very soundbitey at the moment. Like they're bombarded with lots of little pieces of information the whole time. And they can actually, which is disappointing, but just a fact, get really put off with big bodies of text, I think.
Yeah.
And I felt that this is a really lovely, gentle introduction by having that same lots of little bits and make it funny and entertaining. And it's very much how you guys work in the Reduced, and that it's funny and it's punchy and it's succinct and it says everything in one, kind of small, hilarious little anecdote, or it's just, it's a perfect marriage. But I think for children, it's that little dip into their toes into Shakespeare, which will just inspire them to then go on to read those much heavier bodies of text and be more engaged, which is a wonderful thing, hopefully, which I certainly didn't have as a child. I was thrown in at the deep end, and if I'm really honest, I found Coriolanus really dull at 13. It's like I found it really hard to get engaged. Even though
I found Hamlet dull in high school. I couldn't get through it. I didn't like Shakespeare till I saw it on stage. I go, oh, I see what this is. Yeah.
Yes.
What was fun for me in writing it was we write shows for grownups that are also fun for kids, depending on the age of the kids and the coolness of the parents. And this was sort of turning it around, that we wanted to gear it for younger audiences, but have it be fun for grownups. And so, and we're reducing things, but the publisher or editor is saying, you have 114 words in this area. Go.
Yeah, there's reducing and there's reducing, isn't there? I mean, the whole of the sonnets needs to be in this tiny square, please. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I was thinking about that too. It's sort of all the sonnets are covered in this section
in a tiny square. Yeah,
the tiny square. And then it has flips within it, and it goes rather deep. But still, it was kind of the ultimate reducing of Shakespeare.
Completely.
Down to this little format. That occurred to me too, because our next two plays, William Shakespeare's Longfellow's First Play Abridged and Hamlet's Big Adventure Abridged, are less reductions and more sort of explosions and explorations.
You'd probably had enough of reducing after my book. That was just suffocating. Get me out of that reduction.
Well, and it was a fun a challenge, as Reed was saying, to figure out who's leading, what leads first, the text or the images. I mean, from our standpoint, we were very much following your lead, because this is your area of expertise, the design of it, the layout of it. You had done these books so far. I remember we thought it was going to be a larger book, and then
I know
financial constraints and everything else.
Oh, it's so sad. In fact, I found one of the dummies, a white dummy,
right here,
and it was really elaborate. And I think that any person working in novelty books right now would feel the same pain that we went through, because times are not like they were in the 90s. And it's all about paper and glue points and price reduction, and so it was a simplified version of a big dream, I think, wasn't it? But in a way, it's fine, because if you know those constraints, you then have to rework around them and make sure that there's enough going on. I mean, the fact that you turn the book around, which is something that I'm really keen on in pop-up books, so you kind of feel like you still got that exploration and you have that real connection with the form of the book. But you're right, it did start out being a much more elaborate book.
Well, I remember our discussions about what are the layouts going to be. I remember one discussion, we have one layout, all Shakespeare plays that are largely set in the forest, that will be one, and one will be a ship, and one will be a castle. And after various permutations and how many pages did we have, I said, if people are looking for the plays, maybe we put the comedies together and the tragedies together and the histories together, the biography together, which I think ultimately is good, because if people are looking for one of the plays in the book, it's easy to find.
I remember we thought we were going to have tragedies, histories, and then comedies, and then a fourth page called comedies.
Yeah, I like that idea. That
the
was
problem
fantastic.
plays and the
That's
later
right.
romances.
Question mark. Yeah. Is this supposed to be funny? Yeah. Yeah, and then I think costings got in the way, and it was just too expensive to have another whole spread, so we had to put them all together.
Well, and it makes a perfect sense. But we kept those centerpieces that we were talking about. There's a ship.
Yeah.
There's a ship. We finish on a big castle for both Hamlet and the Scottish play. And I love the fact too that you insisted that it's a 360 thing, because that makes it a very theatrical kind of book. It's a different book depending on where you're sitting or how you're holding it. It's one thing to look at the book like this. It's another thing if you're looking down on it like this. That's a different experience as well. You know, so it is kind of, I love watching. Many folks have sent in pictures of their children interacting with the book, and we have them up on our website, the reducedshakespeare.com website. And they're fun to watch because you just see they're absolutely involved with the images, not so much with the text probably at that point, but still, I think they're getting something.
I think it's really interesting watching children play with play, because that's what they're doing, and that's essentially the most important thing about pop-up books is you are playing, which is they forget they're learning or absorbing really important facts. But when I watch kids play with them, they really go for it because they're quite robust as well. I think if you kind of open up the flaps of a pop-up book, the kids just kind of really open and they really get engaged. But it's so interesting watching an adult because they're so nervous because it's paper and they're delicate and they're scared of it, and yet children just have this lovely total absorption with it. And luckily they're quite robust. But it's interesting. There's nothing nicer than watching a child play with a book. I mean, it's just glorious.
I'm trying to remember the process. I felt like we were firing kind of on all cylinders, but I'm not sure my memory is correct. That were we writing and Jenny was drawing at the same time, or what's your two recollection of the process?
Well, you created sort of rough layouts. Once we figured out the sections, Shakespeare's biography, his life in London and Stratford, comedies, histories, tragedies, and then romances and poetry. Those were the 5 spreads. Then that took a while. That conversation. That took a long time.
And then I remember because some of the spaces, I mean, I can show you just how small the spaces are that you guys had. And in terms of kind of what text goes where, that is a very small space for the whole of Much Ado About Nothing. Well, there's a flap, but it continues underneath, but it's still really tiny. And so when I gave you the sort of this is the space, I think the text that you'd written had to be reduced. This was the harshness of the reduction had to be reduced further to make it fit. And then it was interesting because it was, as you say, it's like this whole chicken and egg, and I'm not surprised Reed can't quite remember because there was so much toing and froing because I don't have the knowledge. I mean, as I said at the start, I wish I'd had this book at school because my knowledge of Shakespeare is not great. And so I didn't know really what to illustrate. Like, what are the key characters for the Comedy of Errors? What should I be illustrating there? Or Love's Labour's Lost? What's the one image that you would choose? So it was very much a collaboration, more so than any book really, because we were toing and froing a lot. So how much space have we got for text, Jenny? And I was saying, what for the 2 gentlemen of Verona, what are the images? Send me some images. I'm stuck, So,
well, there's 2 guys.
Yeah.
But I remember some of those discussions that you emailing us saying, okay, what are key images from this play that we need to include? There's a guy with a skull. We should probably include that.
Well, and I remember, I mean, most of the time, it's funny that you talk about this because I remember, but mostly what I remember is you just coming back with these images and I'm going, oh my God, this is perfect. just looking at it and going, how did you come? I mean, the 12th night, you've got the rigging, you've got the fish, you've got a woman dressed as a man, you've got all these things. I also remember places where we had to reduce our text even more because there wasn't the room. But then there were a handful of places where we had to write more because we've created.
Yeah, here's an empty
Big massive
space.
pot. Yeah.
Yeah,
and
you've got an empty space this big. Come up with an image and text.
Yeah.
Right. And suddenly I had to write more about Merchant of Venice without really telling my honest view, which is that it's really overrated and not a great play.
You should have been honest. It's fine. But I think that's why, because in sometimes when you work with a writer, it's quite removed. But I think that's why, I mean, it's a long time ago, but I would, I don't mean to sound obsequious, but I would consider you two like really good friends now. And I think that's because it was such a collaboration and we had so much time talking together and interacting together. And sometimes when you work with writers, it's very different. You have your text and you might speak once or twice, but this really feels like a real team effort.
How was this process different? I mean, besides that you think we're lovely, we fooled you, but from other books you worked on, how was the process different?
I think, well, obviously my main body of books was written by Kate Petty, who was a really dear friend, and that was very similar. We had a really sort of strong collaboration. But most of the other books where I have written with a writer, it is really different in that the editor might pair you with somebody with some good text and they've been trying to find an illustrator, and you might meet with them in the publishing office maybe once or twice and have a few phone calls. But with something like this, where it is such a collaboration, and I didn't have the knowledge, like I know London, and it's not hard to know New York, especially if you're writing it for a tourist, and you are a tourist when I did pop up New York. But this was very different in that I could not have even started without you guys. So and it's very much the Reduced Shakespeare Company's book, because it's also really funny as well, which was for me really vital, because I wanted it to be slightly Monty Python-esque, that sort of slightly silliness, because that's also important, that it's not seen as a people might criticize it for not supporting the curriculum or being too big jobs worthy, but it had to be funny. So there was no question that it has your personality, and that was really important. I still read it and chuckle.
Yeah, we wanted it to be accurate but irreverent in our style.
It
right?
is completely accurate, but
Nobody, and in fact, our friend Peter Holland, who's one of the preeminent Shakespearean scholars in the world, vetted it for us. We said, well, we've made jokes. And and we're talking about a lot of plays and a lot of work. Can you go through this and make sure we haven't gotten anything wrong that we didn't intend to get wrong?
Yes, well, yes, and that was amazing that he not only did he say it was great, but he really loved it as well, didn't he?
Well, and an example of that, one of the things you're talking about is the thing that you drew for Richard III, which is Richard on the throne talking to his two nephews, the princes who would later die in the tower. And originally, you had illustrated him with a crown on his head. And my wife Dee and I were watching the Richard III Hollow Crown, part of the Hollow Crown, where Benedict Cumberbatch is Richard III. And we got to that scene and I went, oh no, he's not the king yet in that point of the play. And we had a long conversation about, well, he's a king in his mind, we could justify it. Is there a fix? You had already drawn it. We were close to, I think, publishing date. And Reed made the point that, no, it's going to look like a mistake that we made because we're ignorant, rather than one that we're intending on purpose. So let's change it. And I don't think it was that hard of a change. You just drew a cap over the crown.
Yeah, it was okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and it's really vital. Yeah, that these are children. This is their first, insight. We can't, tell them the wrong thing. It'll stay with them for years.
I have a friend who has a young friend, and she has a young daughter, and maybe 7 or 8, and she is fixated on this image. Talk about unintended consequences. The image that you drew for Henry VI Part 1. She's kind of horrified and fascinated by this image. Why are they sticking that man? And it's just a weird, interesting perspective that I wouldn't think about. Why is that image worse than other images? You know, but
The children's minds are amazing, aren't they? And what they do become fixated with, and that's what's great about the fact that every single image represents one play. Because if that little girl is engaged with that particular Henry VI, that's it. And then maybe in the future she'll really want to see it and read it and get, really get herself absorbed with the play because of that one image. So this is why it's important to have these little soundbite introductions to plays for the children, I think.
We're a gateway to grown-up Shakespeare.
Perfect. Perfectly put, Reed, yes.
well, and as they get older, then they start to get more of the jokes that they didn't get when they were little. And then they'll, I mean, like Shakespeare too. You go, really?
Yeah.
That means
Yeah.
that? I didn't realize.
Did you have a publisher in mind, Jenny, when it started? As I recall, there was kind of an adventure in getting, getting published.
Yes, it was. Well, we first of all approached a much bigger publisher because I was interested to see whether their sort of, the vastness of their team would take it to greater places. And then they merged and everyone left, and it was all a bit of this was, I'm sure I'm allowed to say it, but it was the Penguin Random House merger. And I think we got swallowed up in that. And so the journey was longer than it would have been. I've always had a lovely relationship with Walker Books, who published London and actually I think about 5 of my books, and they just lapped it up when I told Walker about it, and so then everything started to move really quickly and smoothly, and we worked with a fantastic paper engineer. And it just sort of took off, didn't it? But at the beginning there was that sort of, come on, we really want to do this. We know it's a good idea and we can't wait. But it took a little time.
Well,
Something that we weren't involved with, but how much do you have to work with the paper engineer? Here's your vision. You've done a lot of these. You probably have a good grasp of what's possible and what isn't. But is there a lot of back and forth between you and the paper engineer?
Well, the more complicated the book, then the more back and forth there is. And what I tend to do, which probably is quite a mad way of working, and other illustrators go, just what? That's insane. But what I do is I make the page, but of course it doesn't work, and it's like got masking tape all over it, and it's bits sticking up, and it'll have things written on it like this is to move, or this is to go here, or this is to do this, and it's like a sort of maybe like a mini theatre set, really. There's no way that's going to close, because that's the bit I can't do. I can't work that out. And often when I do have a meeting with a paper engineer and I have a whole book, like I remember meeting Richard Ferguson with a London book, and I had these sort of boxes, and they were in my car. So they were so big, I had to put the back seats down and then carry all these boxes out, which are like little theatre sets, and then sort of lay them all out and talk him through the whole book. So it's a slight mad person way of working, but it works because then it's visual, and I'm very visual. I'm terrible at trying to describe things without drawing it. So that's how I like to work with paper engineers, is that I just make it and it's rubbish, and they make it and it's not rubbish. Make it work.
Well, and we worked with a woman named Daisy Jellicoe was our editor.
Yes.
Walker Books, and she was great too.
Brilliant.
Because she understood not only the humor, but she was very well versed in the Shakespeare of it too.
Yeah, she did English at university, didn't she? English literature, and she specialised in Shakespeare, didn't she? Just by chance, which is amazing. Yeah.
I've been looking that we have some folks watching and on Facebook, and 3 people watching on YouTube, but nobody has put any questions in there.
I don't know if it's working on YouTube.
I see it, but I'm just not seeing any people chatting. Just wanted to say hi to Ryan, Patrick. Hey, Sandy Logan, how are you? Jen Lau, always good to see you. Neil James. Chen Shapira, hello from the fans in Tel Aviv. Hello, Tel Aviv. Shalom, y'all. Jillian, hello. Somebody named Julie Martin McClellan, Reed.
Sounds vaguely like my sister.
Yeah, okay. Christine Green from Battle near Hastings in England. Well, that's appropriate that there would be a town named Battle near Hastings.
Hastings.
Gary Andrews, illustrator, animator Gary Andrews is here. It's funny. He said what we said. This book works well because a pop-up book is practically a performance as well. So it almost is like watching Shakespeare rather than reading it. Krista Skiles from Cincinnati. Hi, Krista. Catherine Kidwell, Tiger Reel. My daughter Daisy's watching. God bless. Ava Selly. I apologize for pronouncing your name wrong. My 13-year-old daughter and I are watching in Arizona. We saw your Christmas show a few months ago, which now feels like years ago. It really does. It really does.
Years ago. It was.
Yeah. I've been following you guys since I saw you during a semester abroad in London in the 90s. You're the best. Didn't know there was a pop-up book. Can't wait to see it. Good.
Apparently it's not working on YouTube. So this is, I think, just on Facebook. I don't know. I'm having
real quick programming note. This is Matt who's running. Hey, Jeannie, the Facebook, it recreated its own link. So on that Facebook page, I put in a link embedded. You click on it, and you'll see the live streaming on YouTube.
I'll try and tell people who are on Instagram saying it doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Tell them there's a link on that Facebook page that will direct them to the new link that this streaming.
I won't do that now because I'll just be faffing around my phone. But yes, hopefully they'll find it.
That's all right. You can faff around on your phone because
I'm just gonna faff around and you just talk.
I was going to suggest that Matt, do you want to? Jenny did a great time lapse of film of all the pop-ups in the book. Are you able to show that to us all? Here goes.
A drum roll, please. That's awesome.
That's very cool. Thank you, Patty Hayes. She says, love the beard, Austin. Patricia Gallagher from DC. If you have any questions that we haven't covered about pop-up books, about Shakespeare, about books, about beards, about lockdown.
What do you remember about, because it's published by Walker Books in the UK, but Candlewick in the US, and I remember there were certain, like, besides adding a U in the word honor, there were I don't know, a dozen or two things we had to change. Do you remember any of those, Austin? Just the words and phrases?
Yeah, there was an expression that I forget what the expression was. Well, in America we say it like this, and in England we say it like this, and I can't think of what that is. Do you remember any? Or are you asking because you don't know?
No, I remember that we had to go through each spread, and it seemed like there were one or two things in each spread beyond spelling, where just the phrasing of this,
Definitely the case with all of my books. I always have to do normally a separate print run for America, just because of slight changes in phraseology or spelling, color, neighbor, all of anything like that, and sometimes they have just a different aesthetic. They know what sells better for them, and I have to change the cover a lot. We didn't, but for a lot of the books, I have the American audience have a different cover. It's a funny world, but I just trust the publishers, and they know what's best for their audience, I think. Yeah.
In America, we said that Mark Twain had written the plays, and for the UK version, they made us say that it was Shakespeare.
Oh, well, that's us. We're protective.
And I'm just looking at the romances page, and I'm seeing words that typically I wouldn't use, but like these might have been words that you wrote, Jenny. Soppy old Shakespeare. Soppy old Shakespeare loved to write about love. I would never say soppy, but it's the right word.
I think that was Daisy, the editor. I think, but yeah, I think it's soppy, not an Americanism.
Not so much. I mean,
not so much.
It, but
yeah, because I remember once on Twitter you questioning my use of ish. When you say I'll see you 7-ish, or it's like an approximation. And I remember also going, excuse me, ish. What are you? So we do
Why,
have some
why did I do that?
Sorry?
I don't know why I did that.
I remember you saying ish. Oh no, do you have ish?
No, we totally do have ish, but I don't know why I would question your use of it.
Oh, I don't know. It was when, yeah, quite a few.
Maybe it was 7. I probably had a problem with 7.
Yeah, 7.
That's
it's too early. Yeah.
But one of the things, and I hope people are getting this from just seeing you in person. But the other great thing about you, Jennie, for us, is that you're funny. You're the one who put this on the cover. That was you. Saith what? That's a joke. That's an extra joke. It's a bonus joke, and it's right there on the cover.
Oh dear. Well, you two are infectious. I think that's it.
Where have we seen this?
You can't be with you without laughing.
That's a horrible thing to say during a COVID lockdown.
I know. I was going to say
whatever.
Oh yes, that's not. Yeah, that's not good. It's
Whoops.
like the phrase. You know the phrase. You got this, and that's like another. Like don't say that now. That's not.
Right.
We've had fans send us photos. What do they call it? Seen in the wild or something?
Oh yeah,
Spotted in the wild.
Book for sale in various places. I remember somebody took a photo at the Metropolitan Museum of Art shop in New York, the Shakespeare's Birthplace Trust.
In Stratford, in Stratford, or out at Oregon Shakespeare Festival. Oregon Shakespeare, Stratford, I think, Stratford, Ontario.
Yes, they have. They always have a fine supply. Yes, I went there recently to do an event to promote the book and to help them during Shakespeare Week, and we dominated the bookshop. And maybe they just put them out because I knew I was coming. Quick, get them out, blow the dust off, put them out. But there were lots and lots of books, so that was very promising.
They have at the Folger Shakespeare Library gift shop. I've seen them there, which is lovely. Somebody named Lucy Maizels has commented.
No relation.
I'm Jennie's sister, and I confirm she's very funny.
Oh, funny looking. No, she's funnier. She's very funny.
She's the funny one of the team. What does it feel like? Because I keep thinking, well, what's the next thing we could do together? Can we do a pop? Because you said we're all friends now, and in that sense, it's like we did a show. Those intense
it feels like that. You're right. Yeah,
close relationships you get, and I'm constantly going, well, what could we do next? Pop up Dickens.
Yeah, it would be lovely to do some more books with you. I would love that. Yeah, definitely. And it's because we've only met, Reed and I have only met in person once when I came to California, but we've had a billion Skype and Zoom or whatever chats, and this is the lovely thing, isn't it? It doesn't actually matter if you don't meet face to face, that you can form these really strong bonds and relationships just on a screen, which has been, we couldn't have done this book, could we, if we didn't have this type of platform.
Well, and also talking about forming these relationships on these screens, this book is the least of what you do, Jennie. You teach these workshops, and now you're teaching them online. Tell us all about what you do and how people can get involved with them, because they're really amazing.
Oh, bless you. Well, actually, I'm offering them for free right now in lockdown to keep people busy. And I run something called Sketchbook Club, which essentially is like, it's like a little mini cookery show, teaching you how to cook, where if you follow a kind of chef, they're telling you literally what to do step by step. And there's like little cheats, isn't there? It's like, well, don't make your own puff pastry, buy it. And that's kind of quite a good analogy for Sketchbook Club, in that it's a recipe and you can't go wrong. And we do some shameless cheating, like we do tracing and we do a bit of copying, and it's all fine, because actually I disagree with that theory that it doesn't matter what it looks like if you're creating. Of course it does. It's like, I think it's like saying you just cook. It doesn't matter if it's inedible, it's fine. You're just enjoying cooking. Whereas surely if you're creating and making images, it completely 100% matters what it looks like. And so with Sketchbook Club, I just help people create things that they maybe wouldn't ordinarily be able to do because of the cheats, and because it's like following a recipe. And they're just pretty pictures. They're kind of the kind of things you might buy on a gift card or put on your wall. And you go onto my website, which is jenniemaizels.com, and you just choose which ones you like and which ones. I would recommend choosing the one you really think you can't do, because it'll make you feel even more proud. And during lockdown, I'm saying to people, just email me your choices and I'll send them to you for free, because it's tough and people are getting really bored, and this is a really good coping mechanism. I also hold workshops in my studio, and I do corporate events and talk about creativity to people. And it's all come from this sketchbook club sort of idea, really. But it's just really nice to be able to share that joy of drawing, which I've loved all my life.
Yeah, I have zero skill in that.
Maybe you should try some, Austin.
Maybe, but we do the same. But we do the same thing. Clearly, copying and tracing. Shakespeare did that. He took existing stories and embellished them and made them his own. And so there's great precedent for that.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting how people think that it's forbidden, whereas every single illustrator I know has some sort of copying device, like a light box or a photocopy. I mean, it's like I often say, like with my books, there's one building which was really hard to do, and that's the Gary building at the forefront.
Oh, right.
It's the hardest drawing to draw, and I always, I did not sit and draw that. It would be, it's embarrassing, because when I do sit and draw, people give you money and it's all really awkward, and I'm far too British and I hate it. So I took a picture of the Gary building and I traced it. I mean, and I'm supposed to be a professional, so we all do it, and it's completely fine. It's not bad.
Hi, Johanna Brosted. It's good to be back with you. She's our Danish Ophelia. This is a good question. Jean Hegland asked this. What bookshop or theater company would you suggest I order my copies of Pop-Up Shakespeare from to give them a little extra support? Do you have any thoughts about that, Jenny? Like, I can't remember. Do we make more money if they buy it from one company or another?
It makes any difference. Well, I would say in England, I would try the Shakespeare Birth Trust, because they're a charity, and they've been really affected because obviously the visitors centres have been closed. So I think they have an online shop, but you could call, and the shop's probably opening now, because in Britain the shops are opening. So I would maybe try the Shakespeare Birth Trust, but I couldn't say for the US.
Yeah, I think you could contact your local bookseller, and some of them are open and others have, I don't know what the app is, but there's a way there's sort of a common app that deals with independent booksellers in the US, so the bookstore gets a cut as well as the app. Does that ring true to you, Austin?
I think so. There's a new company or a new website called bookshop.org, which is trying to be for independent bookshops around the country what Amazon is to Amazon, I suppose. And so we have some links to both independent and larger chain bookstores on our website, which is reduceshakespeare.com, and then click on the books menu and then click on the Pop-Up Shakespeare menu, and there's a bunch of links there. Speaking of independent bookshops, it's fun to see everybody's where they work. I just shot a video for a group that's calling themselves Inside for Indies, which is, writers in lockdown giving tours of their workspace. And it's a really fun idea, and they have a lot of good links. They're on YouTube, Inside for Indies, and my video just got posted yesterday. But they're supporting all these local bookshops. I mean, for me, it's the Bookstall in Winnetka, and they can get you autograph copies, at least my autograph, if you want to order from the Bookstall in Winnetka. But you have Sonoma Readers Books, is that what it's called?
Yeah, Readers Books, just off the plaza in Sonoma, and I think they're having, socially distant. I think they're open, and being socially distant in there. So that would be the local place in Sonoma.
Yeah. If you're in LA, I recommend Chevalier's Books. If you're in Oakland, there's a Great Good Place for books. There's got to be other. Jenny, you must have. Is there a tension in the UK as there is here between chains and independent bookshops? So like you have Waterstones, And
yeah,
then
but Waterstones is quite highly respected. I think it doesn't feel like an Amazon. I think. I mean, and we, like the fact that they're open and we all writers and authors are, championing their cause and want to support them, and they feel like quite an authentic bookshop. But the independents are few and far between now in Britain. It's really sad. There used to be a wonderful children's bookshop in my little town of Romsey when I first moved, called Volumes, and that closed down. And now we don't have a bookshop. We have one of those remainder shops, but you know what I mean, the sort of seconds. And the nearest bookshop is in Winchester, and there's a Waterstones and there's a wonderful independent bookshop by the cathedral. But apart from that, they're quite rare. If they do exist, they are heavily supported because we're all too aware of how fragile they are because of Amazon. But yeah.
The North San Francisco Bay Area is very fortunate. There's Book Passage also in Marin, and there's a small chain of independent bookshops, Copperfields, around Sonoma and Marin counties, which is a good shop.
And Gene Hegland, who asked that question, just echoed Reader's Books in Sonoma as a great choice. This is Matt Croak asked this question, and it's an interesting one. Can any of us explain the difference in the creative process from most RSC productions, where audience response helps shape the show? How do you shape a project where there is no audience response?
That's a great question, because so much of our material, is it funny? I don't know. Let's put it in front of an audience and find out. I guess we had to be each other's audience, as well as Daisy, our editor.
Yeah, I was going to say that knowing how publishers work as well, that there's a lot of people involved in reading and checking, is this funny, or how would you think? It's a big office, and then we all had, didn't we? We all had our own sort of networks of people looking at things and reading things, and that's a really interesting question. I mean, I don't perform, so I don't ever have any audience feedback, but that's an interesting question.
Well, Reed, do you live in the same tough kind of room that I live in, where you're surrounded by family members who look at what you write and go, yeah, well,
Yeah, it isn't even a noise. It's just, we were talking about that the other night. But, so we wrote, Bernard Levin, the Dean of British Theatre Critics, told us a long time ago, write what's funny to you, right? And it will be funny to other people. And the good thing is, in a book, I mean, in a way, I think I would say the book is trying to be accurate and amusing, whereas a stage show is trying to be funny and secondarily accurate. And so I think the book can be sort of clever or amusing, and it maybe not necessarily laugh out loud funny, but enjoyable just for what it is. It doesn't have to be an out loud laugh to be amusing or clever or funny.
Well, and the other challenge we had was about, in addition to funny, was explaining some of Shakespeare's plots in age-appropriate language.
Yes, I remember this well.
I remember,
that
some
was
of these
challenging.
Yeah.
I'm amazed that we actually kept the title "The Rape of Lucrece." There was some talk that maybe we just call it Lucrece, which I think the Folger, it has had alternate titles in the past, and the Folger said Lucrece, but we describe it as dark and violent and not romantic at all. It's like, shut up, get away, stop talking. I don't think we talked about the bed tricks. I don't think
so.
Not age appropriate.
I remember the conversations well, though, because to be factually correct, we had to be inappropriate. So we had to. It was a balance, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. No, I pulled this off the shelf. Every now and then I'll go, wait, which one was Measure for Measure? Wait, hang on.
Yeah, if you're going to go see a show in an hour and you don't have time to read through, a long encapsulation, just give me 2 minutes. I remember.
Yeah, it's the shortest synopsis. It's perfect. Yeah.
So we've been talking for about 50 minutes. Is there anything? Did anybody else have any questions? Any things we haven't covered? It's just been so much fun to see your faces, I have to say.
Same, I've loved it. So nice.
And now I'm looking at YouTube and read 7 seconds ago, you did this, and I don't know why. But hold on here. Are you guys spending all? Reed, you just finished teaching, so Jenny, are you also spending just hours and hours and hours a week on Zoom, looking at screens?
I finished teaching. I was supporting my students. I feel so sorry for my students, but the final year students. If you go to art school, the end of year is your launching platform for your career, because everybody comes to the show, directors, art directors, and commissioning editors and agents. I got my whole career from my degree show, but theirs has been cancelled. It's not happening, and they haven't had any graduation, and they haven't had any goodbyes. I think after a long degree, it's so tough for them. So I mainly teach second years, and I have a lot of international students, and it's I think for this whole pandemic, it's that age group which has suffered the most. I think the cancellation of this golden time, all the gap years and the festivals, and I don't think it's lost on them that they're losing this time, my own daughters included. But I think it's very, very hard on the sort of 17 to 20 somethings. Is tough. So I've done a lot of Zooming for my students, sometimes just for a chat to just support them, and because they're the same age as my daughters. I think I've kind of emotionally invested in them a bit too much, but I just feel really sorry for them. But I've been also just so busy with Sketchbook Club, and we also sell art materials, and so everybody wants to do something creative in lockdown. So it has been really busy. But I know I'm quite jealous of those people furloughed with their cocktails in the garden, and they're so busy.
We've been doing we were used to do it, now we're tired of them, but we were doing cocktail happy hours that became cocktail unhappy hours, because people just started we were just complaining and whinging about everything that we're going through, and it's like
therapy.
And it was I couldn't do it anymore, because first of all, we've got cocktails, second of all, we've got internet access, we've got a house to be in. We're so much luckier than many people.
Yes, yeah,
a lot worse off than we are. So fingers crossed, we'll survive. We'll survive. Will you have the book translated? Oh, that's Joanna from Denmark. Boy, that's
yes, we translated it from English to American. Is that what you mean?
Yes, we already did that.
I think there may be translations, but I think it's a question for Walker Books. But we could put an update on your Facebook page, and let's ask them. Let's see what translations are in the pipeline. Yeah.
That's a great idea. Well, and if you are just, if you're tuning in late, you'll be able to watch this video from the beginning on the Reduced Shakespeare Company Facebook page, and also on the RSC's YouTube page, and we'll make the video so Jenny can get it on all of her pages as well. We'll also put it on our website, reducedshakespeare.com.
Yeah, we'll try and cut out the bit at the beginning when it didn't work.
You know what? That's just become par for the course for me. Hey, let's do a live thing and have Austin go away and then come back. So I think are we done?
I think our work is done.
That's been so lovely. I've so enjoyed seeing you and talking to you both. We should do this, again. It's been really fun.
Yes.
That's right. When's the latest you can stay up at night and still drink alcohol? Because if I can start around 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, then we might balance out.
Oh, I see. You mean you want the cocktail unhappy hour?
Yes, I want a happy hour. You
want a happy hour? Yeah, we'll make it happy. Yeah, no, that's fine. I'll stay up. I'll stay up all night. I'll wait for you guys. Yeah.
All right. Cool. Anything else? God, it feels like I've been doing so many online things. People can find me wherever they want if they want to see me do online stuff. Go to reducedshakespeare.com and scroll down to the news section. And yes, as Reed is holding up the delightful pop-up Shakespeare.
Oh, should I do it too? You have to all
agree. There we go. We can do a screenshot.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we do a screenshot. Matt, you can cut us off anytime. Thank you all for watching.